start it and make sure that the seconds start counting. And then I'll just go out. And then I'll put these out and you just go. Do your thing.
Okay, well, I'm Hannah Blankenship and I'm in an office, but I'm pretending to talk to a classroom, so bear with me. This is take one of my speech about the challenge to care by Nell Noddings. So, I'll start now, take one. So, I'm Hannah Blankenship, and my speech is on Nell Noddings, the challenge to care. And first, I want to talk about Nell Noddings herself and her life, and then I want to talk about her book, The Challenge to Care in Schools, and then I want to finish up with talking about a classroom, in particular a math classroom, and then some critiques that I had about her book. So who is Nell Noddings? She is an American feminist, educationalist, and philosopher. She's best known for her work in philosophy of education and educational theory and ethics of care. She was born January 19th, 1929 in Irvington, New Jersey, which I thought was pretty interesting because she was born in during the Great Depression, which I found interesting, and which makes her 87 years old, which is pretty old for us. Her schools of thought were analytic philosophy and continental philosophy, and she studied at Rutgers University, Stanford University, Montclair State University, and she was influenced by John Dewey, Aristotle, and Martin Buber, and she used all of their theories throughout the book. She is also a Lee L. Jacks Professor of Education Emerita at Stanford University, and another fun fact is that Emerita means that she is no longer a professor, because I was a little concerned that an 87-year-old woman was teaching still, and so I had to look up what emerita meant, and that's what that means. I'm not a word person, I'm a math person. And she is a past president of the National Academy of Education, the Philosophy of Education Society, and the John Dewey Society. She has authored 17 books and written more than 200 articles and book chapters on various topics ranging from the ethics of care to mathematical problem solving. And one of the books, which we're going to talk about today, is The Challenge to Care. Now, the main theme of The Challenge to Care is caring through moral education, is the thing that I got out of it. And the first thing that I want to talk to you about today is caring. Nell Noddings, throughout her book, talked a lot about how schools should be organized through centers of care, or themes of caring. And she defined caring as a connection or encounter between two human beings, a carer or a cared for. And she talked a lot about this through the book. She mentioned it multiple times. She said that this did not occur unless both parties contributed. A teacher could care for a student, but unless the student accepted the care, then the caring did not occur. Caring in the classroom did not just revolve around the teacher and student relationship. I thought that the book was going to be a lot about how we could care for our students, those students that maybe didn't have everything that I had growing up. Maybe those who had a hard life, or maybe, all those interesting things that, we don't get to deal with every day. But it was more along the lines of how we could teach students to deal or care with everything. it wanted us to teach students to care for others and the environment and other people and animals and plants and items and ideas and just about anything you can think of. She wanted us to show students how to care for everything. I began to wonder how we were going to teach them actual math or English or anything in school other than caring. She decided that one way we could meet the challenge to care in schools was to plan for continuity. There were 4 ways that we could use continuity in school, and one was continuity of purpose, and this was to make it clear in schools that our first purpose was to care for each other, and that schools were centers of care. And the second was that continuity in schools of residence, and this was that students should stay in one school building long enough to acquire a sense of belonging, and she believed that students should be in schools at least 3 and preferably 6 years. And she also believed in small schools, and I definitely agreed with her on this. I've always said that I would teach at a smaller school. I'm from Saltillo High School, which is in Mississippi. It's a very small town. It's growing though. It's a 6A school now. But I've always liked small schools because they have a sense of small, community, and you get to meet or get a more relationship with your students, and you get to know them better. And she felt like this was better for your students to get to know you, and you get to have a more personal relationship with them, and I definitely agreed with her on that one. And then number 3 was continuity of teachers and students, and this one was that teachers should stay with students by mutual consent, of course, for at least 3 years or more. And this reminded me of what we all used to watch when we were little, Boy Meets World. And I remembered Mr. Feeney and how he stayed with this Corey and Topanga, like basically their whole life. Even ended up with them in college somehow. And I thought that this is kind of a cool idea, which is, it's not very possible anymore, but it's kind of a cool idea because you know your students and you know what they're going through, or how they learn. And also in this part they talked about continuity of people, and I wanted to read a part. And in this part they talked about how children are murdered and killed in accidents and commit suicide, and when these tragic events occur, grief counselors are dispatched into the affected schools. I'm not arguing that there is no need for specially trained people to advise administrators and teachers, and perhaps to listen to severely disturbed students, but the best grief counseling should come from teachers who should care deeply for the students. And this part really, I guess, stood out to me because I really agreed with her on this. It's not that there wasn't a lot I agreed with her on, it was just a lot didn't seem realistic to me. But there was 2 people in my high school that passed away my senior year, and going back to school the next day was really hard for all the students because the 2 boys were very popular, outgoing, and to have to go back and have all these counselors, it wasn't that no one really wanted to go to them, it was just the people that you wanted to go back to were those caring teachers and the people that, the teachers that knew them and that, knew you and could reach out to you and knew how to handle your classroom. And I think that that's the type of teachers that we need to be in our classrooms, and how I want to be in my math classroom. And that's what Noddings was trying to say. And the fourth was continuity curriculum. And this is the idea, is to show our care and respect for the full range of human capacities by offering a variety of equally prestigious programs of specialization, each embedded in our universal curriculum organized around essential themes of caring. And Nell Nodding's big plan for a radical change for care in schools was the use of moral education, like I said before. And moral education from the perspective of an ethic of caring has 4 major components. And I don't have time to go into a lot of these, but most of these are pretty self-explanatory. And as you see, it's modeling, which is just the demonstration of our own caring, and in front of the students, basically, and dialogue, which gives learners an opportunity to ask why and talk it out, and practice, which we do a lot today, and confirmation, which Martin Buber describes as the act of affirming and encouraging the best in others. And Nodding believes this only works effectively if you know each other well enough. And in my classroom, I read throughout the book. I couldn't really figure out how I was going to, I guess, put this into my math classroom, because like I said before, she went on and on about how we were going to care for plants and everything else. But I did get a lot out of it at the end, and I decided that I was going to be an educator first and a mathematics teacher second, and I was going to persuade and inspire, encourage my students to actually want to learn math, and model caring behavior with my students as well as my colleagues, and engage my students in proper dialogue so that decisions are well informed, and give full control of my classroom and allow students to create their own learning objectives, and respect all of my students, even those who are not good in math, and be able to accommodate for them. And one thing that I got out of this didn't really hit me until we got to listen to Whit Wade talk after we gave the speeches, and that was that when he talked about the opera and how his teacher made that opera into something that meant more than just music, and he applied it to life, and how he can still apply it to his life today. And that's something that I want to do to my classroom, and I think that's what Nell Noddings was talking about a lot throughout her book, and I didn't realize it until he said it, and it clicked when he said it in his speech. And